Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd with the best teeth in the game, and it's time for an episode of Let's Argue, where I take your hot takes and your... I take your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, your tough questions. I respond to the best ones, literally in this video. That is what it is. You know what it is. So let's do what it is. Dance Monkey is a Rancid song and needs to be culled from all clubs and radio stations. I did not know what this song was until I saw this comment. I looked it up. They play this at the club? I mean, there are aspects of the tune I find to be kind of cute, but the worst thing about it is the vocals, the goddamn vocals. They're terrible. They are awful. Like, Jesus Christ. It sounds like a little kid trying to do their best Sting impersonation, like when he was singing for the Police. Yeah, it just sounds like a bad Sting impression. Alien Ant Farm's Smooth Criminal is much better than Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal. This is absolutely true. I always skip your Alien Ant Farm's Smooth Criminal is much better than Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal. This is absolutely disgusting, blatantly untrue, and the only reason you think this is because this is literally Alien Ant Farm's only good song. If they did not record this cover, you would have no idea who the hell Alien Ant Farm is, or what even an Alien Ant Farm is, which at this point I'm still not even sure if I know what that is. I always skip your bass intro. That's fine. Do what you want. Skip the bass part, skip this part, skip the next part. Watch whatever videos I do that you feel like. I'm not forcing you to watch my content. I'm not even forcing you to agree with any of the opinions I put out. I wish I could. If I could, I'd mind control you, and you'd watch all my bass intros, but I can't. So I just have to, let you enjoy your free will. Tyler's Grammy performance will go down as the greatest performance in Grammy history. I don't know about that per se. Not that I have like a working knowledge of every frickin' Grammy performance that ever occurred, but I don't think that's the case for any Tyler fans either. Still, having said that, I will say that Tyler's Grammy performance was easily one of the most erratic and dark and probably aggressive and weird that's ever been on the Grammys stage. So there's something to be said for that. I don't know if that necessarily makes it the greatest, but it certainly stands out. Your argument for disliking Blade and Drain Gang on the last Let's Argue had a pretty objective and condescending tone. I think that's kind of messed up considering both your influence on the music community and how this contradicts this video's message, the video about how I control your taste. Once more, regardless of my opinions on Blade and Drain Gang, I don't wish to control your taste or force you to think a certain way about something. However, what I will say is that, look, just because I think something might be sucky or lose its flavor, lose its relevance, lose its contextual appeal into the future, that doesn't mean that it's not good or appealing right now, or that you shouldn't enjoy it or listen to it right now. Look, there are even some things that I enjoy to this day that are heavily based on aesthetic and novelty, and I don't think we can really deny that that is kind of the case for Drain Gang. That is kind of the case for Blade. Blade is not a supremely talented vocalist. He is not a godlike composer. He's not hopping on top of instrumentals that are all that inventive or cutting edge. If I'm wrong, I'll acknowledge it, but 70 years from now, I don't think anybody's going to be looking back on Blade's discography like it's the greatest fucking gift to mankind. But hey, honestly, I wonder if I'm going to be jamming Death Grips when I'm 80. Maybe not. Machine Girl doesn't sound like Death Grips. I don't think I ever argued that Machine Girl in general sounds like Death Grips. Mostly the instrumentals on Ugly Art, which I think they do. I think the synth timbres, I think the drums, I think the rhythms and the way the production flows and is assembled kind of just sounds like a Death Grip song. If you can't imagine Ride screaming his brains out over half the tracks on that record, I wonder if you've even listened to Death Grips. And honestly, I don't understand what the surprise or the offense is in making that comparison. If that similarity doesn't bother you, then just listen to it. Enjoy it. For me personally, it was a little too close for comfort, but Machine Girl isn't even the only or the first instance of this kind of being a thing for me, an artist that is so close in tone to not just another, but Death Grips specifically, that it just felt like a little underwhelming or just a little annoying to me. Artists kicking someone out of a show when they're being disrespectful and rude should stop being seen as a bad thing. It doesn't matter if you paid for it, that's not how the world works. Well, yeah, paying for a concert ticket doesn't give you the right or the ability to just go into that concert, interrupt, be a dick, be an asshole, ruin everyone else's good time. You have paid to observe. You have paid to have the same experience of observation as everyone else. Other people didn't pay to see you kind of derail the whole thing. So if you're wrecking shit and making it harder for the artist to do their job or for other people to enjoy, yeah, you should get kicked out. It's not a terrible thing if the artist sees you doing that shit and they're like, get the fuck out of here. I personally have had a speaking engagement that I did where someone in the front row was being sort of interruptive and they weren't all that happy with what I was doing. And honestly, like, they said they didn't want to be there. I said, okay, go. I gave them I literally took money out of my pocket the price of their ticket, and I gave it back to them. But you know, if someone doesn't want to be there, or if they're just kind of wrecking the whole thing for everybody else, they don't want to be there, or you don't want them there, like, leave. Go. You don't have to stay. Who are the top 5 busiest music nerds besides yourself? Ones that come to mind are Deep Cuts, Mike Seatown, Nardwar, Cole over at the Dissect podcast. I will say Pad Chennington, and also a bonus, I'll say Finn McKinty. The way he does these deep dives into how certain genres were popularized or fell out of relevancy is pretty interesting. Requires a lot of research and a lot of firsthand knowledge of how that shit went down too. Everyone remembers the music video for Ocean Avenue by Yellowcard. Speaking of Pad Chennington, no, I don't. I don't remember that shit. Although I will admit, I mean, by the time Yellowcard came around, I was pretty fiercely into a lot of old school punk, hardcore punk. Anything that would have sounded anything like Yellowcard, I most likely would have categorized as just being shit and had just like avoided like the plague. That's where I was at that point in my musical journey. Hot take, I don't know why people are mean on purpose. People are usually mean on purpose, trying to hurt others because they themselves are hurt, or they're trying to express some sort of anguish or unhappiness with their own lives, or a lack of control over the life that they lead, or have a sense of not being able to deal with the massive changes and shifts in the world around them. Either that, or they are sadistic. Some people just want to cause pain because they have a mind glitch that makes them want to do that. It's a mental health issue. So, I mean, there are a few different reasons, a handful of reasons, that could really drive someone to want to hurt other people physically, emotionally. It's never one thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all explanation that I have here. But remember the next time someone is hurting you, that most likely it's not coming from a space of health, happiness, personal stability. That person most likely has issues as well. And as long as that hurt they're laying upon you isn't abusive, isn't detrimental to your own well-being, and you can walk away from it, you can separate yourself from it, do that, try to make peace in your own life, and ultimately feel bad for that person. Feel bad that they have to go through their lives hurting other people in order to feel some kind of peace, because that is a very sad existence to lead. Earl Sweatshirt seems to be spiraling into addiction to cope with the loss of his mother and father. He seems more depressed than ever, and his music reflects his descent into insanity, and no one is talking about it. Unless you're talking about some sort of separation on a personal level, I don't think Earl has lost his mom. I think his mom is still very much around and alive. His father has passed away, though. That much is true, and he does address that quite a bit in his music. And it is very clear that he does abuse substances to cope with his feelings on these issues. I mean, he says as much in his own music. And honestly, while I guess we're not collectively talking about it as an audience and a community in terms of like, what can we do to help Earl? we're all very much talking about it generally and aware of it generally. As fans, we are paying attention to what he's saying. I don't know, it's difficult. I mean, while I do wish that music fans had a bit more emotional intelligence in terms of just understanding the reality of some of the negative emotions their favorite artists put into their music, and understanding that it's more than just entertainment, especially when you're talking about an artist like Earl. Simultaneously, it's hard to kind of prescribe anything in this situation. Even as someone who, I hear some of the things Earl says in his music, and while I do have concern for some of the things that he says and some of the issues that he's going through, even with the platform that I have, I cannot reach out to Earl and say, can I help? Is there something I can do? I hope you're feeling okay. I'm concerned. I don't really know him like that, nor do any of his fans, and I'm not sure he wants to know me or any other stranger who might listen to his music generally like that either. I mean, I assume and I hope that Earl has people around him who care about him, and if he does need help, and if he does want to make a life change, that he has access to a support system of individuals who will encourage him to do the right thing and help him along the way, strengthen his resilience when he is in doubt and when he is tempted to make the wrong choice. People who are kind of dealing with the issues that Earl is, and there are many, things like depression, in order to deal with and fix those issues, as an outsider, you can't really force health, you can't really force the right decision, you can't really force well-being and betterness on that person by just willing it upon them. You know, it requires some agency on the part of the person suffering from the problem to sort of step out of those feelings a little bit, ask for help, and try to reach out to others. Which I acknowledge does sound sad and maybe in some respect sounds defeatist, but I swear to you it's not, because there are lots of people who I've known personally who deal with such issues, and again, while you may want to help as much as you possibly can, it is sort of a personal struggle at the end of the day that you can only aid as much as someone will allow you to, because issues like depression and addiction are very much internal struggles at the end of the day. So again, I don't know what the answer to this ultimately is. I guess I just once more put out there that I hope Earl is on a better path, and that if he does need help, that he reaches out to those who have the power and the ability to help him the most. Musicians should stop showing off musical talent during the national anthem. It gets annoying when a singer tries to hit a high note at the end and then hold that knot for 10 seconds. So essentially what you're saying here is that is the national anthem the appropriate time as a vocalist to really like flex? Should you flex on the fucking national anthem? And I don't know. I mean, I've heard some really great, compelling performances of the national anthem where, yeah, you are kind of flexing and doing some insane vocal runs, and you do hit that high note at the end and you really lay on it. Honestly, really laying on the high note at the finish is not even the most annoying thing I think you can do with the national anthem. Like, what would you want someone to do? For the land of the free and the home of the brave. When I do get annoyed by some renditions of the national anthem, it's typically when, oh, say does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave? Shit like that. If you can't, like, support or tribute the original melody of the song without like going crazy on the vibrato or just like, playing every fucking note around the note in the original melody, I feel like you're doing too much. But again, I don't think there's a truly right or wrong way of doing it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I just hope whoever I hear singing the national anthem is a decent singer, because no matter what you're doing with it, whether you're singing it straight or you are doing some crazy Christina Aguilera type runs over it. There's nothing worse than hearing someone who sucks at singing the national anthem, which actually reminds me of the time Fergie sung the national anthem at that NBA All-Star game. That was terrible. Let's not do that again. All right, those are my final thoughts. That's my last take. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Let's Argue. Over here next to my head is another one that you can peep. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe. There's a link to subscribe somewhere as well on the screen. Hit that too. We will see you in the next one. Anthony Fantano, Let's Argue forever.